Good morning. I'd like to call this November the 15th, 2017 meeting of the Planning and Advisory Commission to order. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first reading of any rezoning for the special exception request brought before us today. We will hear a reading of the staff report, and we will ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against the request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion and render a decision. And then that decision will be sent back to the Planning Division and then on to City Council, who will hear the request 2 more times before rendering a final decision. We do have minutes that were sent out to you commissioners earlier. We can accept those as submitted unless any of you have any changes or additions that need to be made to them. And I see none, so we will submit those as accepted.
I do have one request, Chairman. If we could alter the agenda and have the special exception case move forward first.
Sure. Absolutely. So do that one first.
Yes, please.
Not a problem. All right. So we have accepted the minutes as submitted, and then we will bring our first case forward, which is a request for a special exception use located at 1501 13th Street. The current zoning is NC, which is neighborhood commercial. The request is to allow for a use for more than 5,000 square feet within an existing structure. Brian Solito is the applicant, and the property is located in Council District 7, Woodson. Mr. Harrod, if you'll read the staff report for us, please.
Thank you. The property is located at 1501 13th Street. We have 3 different qualifiers that we have to look at. The first is access. Is street access to the building adequate to serve one or more permitted uses that occupy more than 5,000 square feet, gross square feet in the building? The local street provides access to the property. Local street providing access to the property will be adequate for neighborhood commercial use within said building. Traffic and pedestrian safety. Currently, access is adequate to serve the proposed use. The existing building has been in existence for numerous years and has various access points from numerous streets. Adequacy of public facilities. The proposed use is served by all city services. There will be no school impacts. There were 30 property owners that were sent notices, and we received no comment from any of them within the 300 feet.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions regarding this staff report? Mr. Kenner?
Is this, Mr. Harrod, is this building covered under the UDO in terms of having been constructed prior to March 1st, 2005?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Harrod from the commissioners? All right. If our applicant will please come forward and state your name and address and give us a brief overview.
Good morning. My name is Brian Solito. The address is 1200 6th Avenue. That's the address of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. I am before you today as I have been on a couple of other occasions as it relates to projects that we're working in terms of economic development, specifically job creation and capital investment. The property owner is in the audience today as well, Mike McMillan. The property is 1501 13th Street. Some of you may remember that building as being built in the early 1970s by Mr. Woodruff. Over the years, it's been several things, including IBM has leased the entire building, which is about 30,000 square feet. TSYS has been in it over the years. Recently, in recent history, prior to 2005. The building has had several tenants in smaller uses, but the building was built and designed to accommodate one large user. We find ourselves in this instance kind of in a strange position where zoning of C2 then became neighborhood commercial, where office use is allowed, but office use only at 5,000 square feet or less, and that's why the request for the special exception. So kind of what is at stake here is, as it relates to economic development, the creation of 150 new jobs to Columbus. That's why this building was constructed, and I'd ask that you respond favorably to the request for special exception use in neighborhood commercial.
Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, Mr. Salito.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this request? I see none. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of it? All right. Commissioners, any other discussion or questions? And if not, do I hear a motion?
I have a clarity question.
Sure.
So the entire facility is 31,000 square feet? Did I hear that wrong?
It's roughly 30,000 square feet.
Roughly 30,000? And under the current zoning, you're only allowed to create individual office space of 5,000 square feet. That's not right. Tell me what's going on.
Under the current zoning for neighborhood commercial, if you build a new building in neighborhood commercial, you can only build it to 5,000 square feet. So therefore, it is a legal nonconforming use currently as it states. Its overall footprint is 30,000 square feet, but as it sits in NC, which is neighborhood commercial zoning district, it only allows for a 5,000 square foot building. So therefore, they are asking for the exception.
Mr. Salito.
It's my understanding that the building is 30,000 square feet, but can only be subdivided to 5,000 square feet. So what we've got in this instance is we've got a user currently in the building in 6,800 square feet, and then we have several smaller users within that structure. What the owner is proposing to do is to take down all of the dividing interior walls, reopen up the building to one single user, which would be in excess of the 5,000 square feet as it states in the UDO. So what we're trying to do is return the building to its original purpose, which is to house one user. But we're caught in this old C2, now NC situation.
Okay. And Kevin, it's the opinion of the staff here with the city that is best to seek a special exception versus rezoning it?
That is the opinion of the director, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, seeing as how this property is in Midtown, that's why we created this special exception back in 2010, because there are just certain areas of Midtown where they did not want to see general commercial introduced. So that's why they're maintaining the current zoning classification.
Okay. Madam Chair, as it relates to matter EXCP 1117-2224, special exception for existing building in neighborhood commercial district property located at 1501 13th Street, I move that we approve the special exception.
Do I have, Mr. Davis is second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It is unanimous, so we will send that as approved on to council and to the planning department. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that will bring us to our next zoning request, which this is a request to amend Article 8 of Chapter 7 of the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, by adding a new paragraph, K, to Section 7.8.3, Design Standards for Streets. Mr. Herrick.
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our planning manager, Will Johnson.
Thank you.
Good morning, Will Johnson, Planning Department. We were approached by, or actually Councilor Henderson requested during a council meeting that we look into this, of creating an appeals process for essentially cul-de-sacs is what this is affecting, and emergency turnarounds and things of that nature. So at his request, we have moved it forward, and I'll go ahead and just kind of read over it, but just keep in mind this refers to cul-de-sacs. You have emergency personnel that have to get in there and turn around fire trucks. If you don't have a cul-de-sac, garbage trucks have to back down the street to get your garbage, things of that nature. So that's why we require cul-de-sacs and emergency turnarounds. But this is an appeals process that would go into the UDO in Section 7. So the new language would be Section 7.8.3.K, Appeal of Street Design Standards. Any property owner aggrieved by a determination made pursuant to the standards set forth in this code, Section 7.83, may seek a variance to such standard upon request to council. So it would not go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. It would go straight to council. All of engineering's appeals, except for parking, already go straight to council. A variance shall be issued only when there is, 1, a finding of good and sufficient cause. Number 2, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in an exceptional hardship, and that does not have to be financial. 3, a finding that council has received and reviewed the recommendations of the Department of Engineering, the Department of Planning, the Department of Public Works, the Columbus Police Department, and Columbus Fire and EMS Department concerning the variance request. So all those departments will have input into whether they would support the variance or not. Finally, a determination by council that the granting of a variance will not interfere with the provision of city services along the impacted streets, inhibit the access of public safety vehicles into the affected area, result in extraordinary public expense, or otherwise threaten the safety of the public. And I'll entertain any questions. I know that's a lot of legal jargon.
Mr. Kenner.
This issue started with a cul-de-sac, is that right?
That is it refers to a cul-de-sac. I'm not sure if there's a situation out there that exists now, but it does refer to a cul-de-sac because that's pretty much what we require when you stub out a street. Even if you're stubbing the street into a property you may acquire in the future, we still require you to have an emergency turnaround. It doesn't have to be paved. It can be crush and run or something. But if you get a fire truck or a garbage truck or something in there, they have got to turn around. If you have a street stubbed out and we've got houses on it, a garbage truck has to back in. On top of that, you got the prisoners on there. You don't want to accidentally back over a prisoner because you've got the thing in reverse and they're grabbing cans. So that is why we require emergency turnarounds at cul-de-sacs. But this would create an appeal process for that.
Interesting.
Well, why isn't a cul-de-sac mentioned in here then, if this is for cul-de-sacs?
Well, I'm using the word cul-de-sac and emergency turnaround because that is what this refers to at the end of a street. The language is already in 7.8.3.
Okay.
Mr. Dudley.
But this appeals process would apply to any possible appeal, right?
I'm sorry?
Any possible appeal? This appeal process is not limited to cul-de-sac.
You can already get variances from council on street design and things like that, whether you're narrowing it. I know Old Town has like 24 feet between the curbs, but there's nothing in there specifically for emergency turnarounds or cul-de-sacs. So that's what this would affect. Everything else in street design currently has a variance process.
All the other steps in place.
All the other steps
Right.
regarding
But
streets.
should somebody need to address specifically an
Right.
emergency turnaround, they're not able to at this point, is what you're saying.
Say, in this item 4 here at the end, I'm focused on public safety here, okay? It says at the end here, the determination by council that the council has to determine that this is not a threat to the public safety.
Right, and the council will have reports or memos from all of the folks mentioned in 3. So you could have, of all these folks, 5 or 6 requests to deny the variance.
Okay. Do you anticipate that if this is approved, say if we recommend approval and this is approved by council, are you going to get all sorts of oddball, out of the blue requests that they're going to consume a lot of city time on this?
It's always a possibility that you're going to get some odd stuff, but this is going to primarily refer to new developments or developments that aren't finished. It is not going to have anything to do with existing finished-out neighborhoods or anything.
Mr. Greenblatt?
And this is only covered for public roadways, not private?
Right, private.
It's private.
Yes, private.
Good, thank you.
Mr.
Just to be
Kenner?
clear, the appeal would go directly to council.
It would go directly to council.
And council would have to pass this resolution as to whether or not they want to adopt this variance process.
That's right,
Correct.
yes. Council has to not only approve this ordinance, if it goes through, they would also have to approve a resolution on any variances that come forward, with our reports attached as to whether it's sound planning or a safety issue.
Mr. Kenner?
Well, just once again, I'm still trying to get my head around this. Why we have an appeal process for cul-de-sacs. I mean, what was the issue that came up that instituted this request by a council person?
He doesn't
That I'm
know.
not aware of.
You don't know where it came from? Okay.
And I just want to make sure I'm clarity to me is
Yeah.
just so amazing.
Yeah.
So right now, there's a city policy that states if you have a dead-end street in a new subdivision, you must have a cul-de-sac for various reasons, which I think are good reasons.
Yeah.
Fire, safety,
Yeah.
Right.
trash trucks, things that nature. People, so that they don't have to back down a street or into someone else's driveway, they would go and turn around. And that was a steadfast policy with no appeal process.
That's right.
So right now, what this is going to do is to possibly institute an appeal process that will not come before this body, but will go directly to city council.
That's right.
Okay, I've got one more.
And why are we considering this?
It's an ordinance change to the UDO.
Okay.
And again, this is no different than a zoning case or special exception or anything else. Y'all make a recommendation, and that recommendation can go one of two ways, so.
Yeah. I think, hearkening on Mr. Reese, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing you say is we have this great policy in place right now, especially for new neighborhoods or whatever, that you have to have these cul-de-sacs for various good reasons, and we believe that that's a good ordinance. Why would we want someone to be able to appeal it? I think, is that, are we on the same?
It is.
Yeah.
We are, and particularly since this is impacting new development.
Right,
And
why would we
and
want a
everyone
new-
else is grandfathered in, so it's not going to bother you.
Yeah.
This is new development who, in my opinion, should have the opportunity to design the cul-de-sac in.
Yeah.
Or any necessary turnaround space, because we're talking about blueprints and future development. So
Yeah.
these are just drawings.
Yeah.
And so, I don't.
Even if you continue a street that's not going to be cul-de-sac at a certain spot,
Yeah.
it's going to continue on, you still have to have an emergency turnaround.
Yeah.
And usually, like I said, it's crush and run or something, but it's something a fire truck can
Get around it.
get a ladder truck all the way around in.
Well, ultimately, this was presented by a city councilman, correct?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Henderson, and they have the authority to override this board.
Absolutely.
So, I suggest we don't spin any more wheels on it. We just toss it to them because they're going to make the ultimate decision. And I'm sure he has a good reason for doing so. So if you just procedurally, it needs to get through us so that they can discuss it
Yeah.
fully.
I mean, it would be interesting if we had the backstory as to what
Yeah,
prompted.
I would
what
really
prompted
love
this.
to
I think
know
that's
that.
where it's not clear, is help us understand what prompted it. Mr. Kenner?
Well, say, when it comes to public safety, just to draw some analogies here of public safety, water quality standards, okay? If a change in water quality standard would be something which will be taken very seriously, okay? Building codes, which require minimum strength of buildings and minimum loads that they have to be designed for, you'd have to go a long way before you got a waiver on a building code. This is a public safety issue also. So I'm still trying to get my head around why we're doing this for a cul-de-sac.
Probably
And then
because,
if we do it for this, then what about something else?
Yeah.
my guess, this is just my guess, this is my real estate hat, some builder has probably acquired some land and is looking for an exception. That's just my hunch.
Can I, one question. In what instance do you believe that a variance would be granted? What would be a good reason for council to give a variance to not have this turnaround, this emergency cul-de-sac turnaround?
Well, I can't speak for council. My response is you've got 6. If it's, I can't imagine a situation where it would not meet the criteria of engineering, planning, public works, public safety. So I'm not sure. I can't answer that question. But as you know, 6 votes of council, anything can happen.
Sure.
If we're talking about a road that is going to be eventually extended, okay, and you have to have this emergency cul-de-sac or turnaround, crush and run, whatever, I can't see that being a major expense for a builder or any other opportunity. So I'm with Mr. Kenner. I don't really understand why we're trying to do this, to be quite honest with you.
And even in that situation, the key word is eventually. We don't know when that's going to happen, but we do know that fire emergencies or public safety emergencies can happen at any
All the
time.
time.
And all the time. If you look at the rate of 911 calls. So, you know, it's kind of concerning to me too. I certainly want us to keep in mind here the safety of our first responders and the folks that are trying to do jobs to save lives. They find themselves on the wrong street.
Right.
And now they can't turn around fast enough to get out. You
Yeah.
got to try to reverse out amongst people parked on the curve and
That's-
everything else. That could be problematic.
Well, in an average subdivision today, the right-of-way is either going to be 50 or 60 feet wide, and curb to curb is going to be what, Kevin, 30? Yeah. And then, of course, people park on the street.
Yes, they do.
There's usually only room in a driveway for 2 cars side by side, so you got a bunch of kids, whatnot, they're parking on the street. Guests parking on the street.
So you
then
said
you
that
narrowed
it
it
would be
down
tight.
to from 30 feet to 15.
Any other questions? Mr. Greenblatt?
I have a motion.
Yes.
Okay. Regarding REZN-11-17-2249, text amendment change to the UDO, a request to amend Article 8 of Chapter 7 of the UDO by adding a new paragraph K to Section 7.8.3, Design Standards for Streets. I move that we do not approve.
All of those who are in favor of the motion, raise your right hand, please. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. All of the,
This is to not approve.
right, to not approve.
This
All
is-
those who are,
If you vote
Mr. Greenblatt,
yes,
if you'll restate it as a denial.
I move that we deny this request.
yes. Thank you for the clarification. So all of those in favor of denying the request, please raise your right hand. So I have 4 in favor of denying. All of those who are in favor of submitting it for approval, please raise your right hand. 2. So it's 4-2, submitting as a denial for the majority. Thank you,
And I
Mr.
just
Thomas.
want
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
record that
Yes.
I would really love additional information.
Right.
I would love to have at least one example of where an example like Mr. Greenblatt said, where it would fit this circumstance. Because you say, you know, here, number 2, it says grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship.
Right.
You know,
What is
to
that?
me as an attorney, those are strong words.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And you said other than financial hardship, you know, the only thing I'm thinking is you're taking away more land that could be a part of a lot for a home or something of that nature. And to me, that's not exceptional hardship as it relates to public safety. So I would really need to know, help me visualize where this would be, implemented.
I think that's a good point. Thank you so much, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Johnson. And that brings us to the end of our cases. Mr. Harrod, is there any announcements or any other information that we need to share?
I'll be bringing to you at our next meeting the agenda for next year, or
Oh,
the
yeah.
schedule for next year, and update on our cases versus the council cases.
Yeah, and we will be welcoming back Mr. Ralph King as he'll be one of our commissioners again, so we'll be looking forward to his service again. And we are adjourned. Thank you.